We will call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Blair Zicklin.
Here.
Vice Chair Jean Enright.
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Wayne Richards. Commissioner Joseph Anderson.
Present.
Executive Director Manuel Almira.
I'm here.
Court Counsel John Fomero.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, do we rise for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions, deletions, reorganization of the agenda.
We have none.
None. Wonderful. Approval of the minutes. Anybody have questions, or do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner Anderson. Second, Commissioner Enright. Any discussion? All in favor, all opposed. Carries 3-0. Okay. Oh, now we have to approve the agenda. Skipped over that. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Was it Commissioner
Second.
Enright? Second. Commissioner Anderson. Any discussion? All in favor, all opposed. Carries 3-0. Okay. I guess presentations and announcements.
None.
All right, moving right along. We'll
Sure.
go for the record today. Consent agenda. Consent agenda. For the record, Commissioner Richards is in the building.
Thank you. Good evening.
We're just on consent. Anybody have anything that...
As a chair?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I move that we approve the consent agenda with any changes, deletions, or additions.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Enright, any discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 4-0. District reports.
Thank you, Commissioners. Believe it or not, almost a year ago, the Teeters Countess came to the port, and it wasn't until the day before yesterday that it actually sailed. But getting to her, for her to sail out of here, port staff had coordinated several relocation for that particular ship. If you recall, it went to 14, and then we had to relocate her to 17, back to 14. This action required planning via assistance of the pilots, tugboats, and crew from Tropical Shipping, out of all people, plus our own staff. Also, on November the 7th, our attorneys finally received a complete payment of $180,000 on top of the $20,000 that we had already received, and therefore we were able to release the ship. By the way, during Hurricane Nicole, port operations and maintenance staff were at the port for 2 days straight, ensuring that the Countess did not break free of his mooring and floated down the intercoastal. So you're looking at approximately 1:30 of November the 15th, 3 tugboats pulled the Countess out of the slip and out of the inlet, and it is currently somewhere around Key West or somewhere in the Keys. She's on her way to be scrapped and should arrive in Louisiana on or around December the 6th. This 1-year episode is over, at least for now. Moving on, Commissioners. I had an interesting conversation with a representative from Greener Process System. I discussed this company's environmentally friendly process with its president, Matt Sweetwood, who also attended, and I presented him to Commissioner Enright during the AAPA up in Orlando. The company has developed a state-of-the-art technology device to capture emissions and reduce air pollution from ships. The company will fabricate a piece of equipment called a hat. You've taken a look at it. And it fits over the vessel's smokestack. Then through a filtering device, it captures all the ship's emission. It works by having the device on board a barge with this crane to hoist the hat, vacuum the smoke, and filter it. I'm just waiting for the cost, and particularly the barge logistics. I am not certain if we may be able to fit, if in fact we get into an agreement, that barge between the tropical ships and, of course, the cruise ship. Lastly, I wanted
Before
to
you go
talk-
on to that, so you didn't ask the guy, like, give me a ballpark on, is it a,
Yeah, I did.
500,000 or $1 million or
$5 million.
5 million? Okay.
So he did say that he was going to go back to Europe and see how much he can reduce by. Just,
Oh, well, that's a lot of money.
I did mention to him that his market is out in Long Beach,
Yeah,
and
Long
LA,
Beach, right, big ports, yeah.
but he
Okay,
lives
well.
nearby, and therefore he tried us. Maybe he wants to use us as a what do you want to call that?
Test.
Pilot.
Test
Yeah,
pilot.
program, yeah.
All right. Last, FEC rail update. You may remember that a few months back, FEC came to the port and made a presentation about transporting goods from southern Mexico through the port of Palm Beach using a rail barge with Atlanta, Georgia as a final destination. After months of presentation and discussions with design, rail, and ship designers, the end result would be a barge that would completely block operations at any of our vessels, and particularly Slip 3 where sugar comes in. Additionally, the rail barge construction and operation would essentially divide the port into two sections because the projected time of operation is close to 18 hours. We recently held the last meeting with the FEC to inform them that if they can't redesign the vessel, there is no way we can accommodate that particular service. I think they're going to go to Port Everglades next. That's all I have, other than, of course, the usual schedule. If you can see, the Latin American AAPA this year is going to be down in Santos, Brazil, and, of course, the Commissioner Seminar in Corpus Christi, and lastly, the Power Summit. This used to be the Steel, the Tampa Steel Conference. Now they're changing it to Power Summit and Expo in Tampa at the beginning of next year. Okay, if there's any questions? If not, I'll pass it on.
Okay. Mr. Engineer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm very pleased to advise you that things are starting to move quickly with our Port Infrastructure Development Program. We're handling weekly meetings. We rotate between a Zoom meeting and in a face-to-face meeting. This project is moving forward fast, and we hope to be bringing you some requests for qualifications, requests for proposals, et cetera, so you can make selections and have this project scheduled to start June 1st of next year. Another interesting part of it is we were lucky enough through our works with CBP DHS to finally get a commitment from CBP DHS to supply the new radiation portal monitors that are needed for this. By them funding that instead of us having to pay out of our Port Infrastructure Development Program, this could save us as much as $3 million by having them supply that equipment. The other one I'll update you on is the Berth 1 permits. I am in regular correspondence with National Marine Fisheries on that permit for the project. Right now, we're in the queue. I tried to get an update. We were in the queue at about number 12 to see where we are. I'm still hopeful that we will get that permit, the review from the National Marine Fisheries biological opinion, by the end of the year, and then the next few steps should go pretty quick. So we're working continuously to try to push this project so Berth 1 can get going on this very exciting project to add all the additional berths for mega yachts. Also let you know that we've been working with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the future dredging project. Bids were open today. I don't know the results. I would certainly expect that Cashman Dredging with the Dredge Atchafalaya will be our friend coming in again. Every time we do this, the director has to authorize and sign 27 easements to place sand on the beach, et cetera. They're reviewed by council and executive director, and then they move forward. We expect the next round of dredging to start possibly in 30 days. They plan to try to accelerate since we have had some shoaling issues that are having somewhat impact to our port, and we hope to see that move forward very quickly. If you got any questions,
Is
otherwise,
this the main dredging that we do every year, or is it, it's kind
This-
of early, isn't it, for?
this is the large project that we started last year, one of the largest dredging
Right.
projects to dredge the complete area, and they weren't able to finish because of poor weather and left them bumping up against turtle season when they can't place sand on the beach anymore. So that, we'll know the mobilization soon, and this project should be, hopefully with good weather, be around 30 to 45 days of dredging.
I see. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
We have a Gerald Ward, you had a question?
Good afternoon. Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway, great city of Riviera Beach. 3 items were put on the port engineer's agenda. The first, the PID, Port Infrastructure Development. This is probably one of the most important things that finally has started to do, but it still doesn't have a master plan to guide it in further projects. You heard one that just got sort of funded by another lucky person, entity, but we have got to start paying more attention to planning at this port so that you can actually get down the road with infrastructure development. Second is Berth 1. Now, you've heard that a deal was cut with this Congressman Mast to put a provision in the WARDA, which is the basic funding mechanism of Congress for the Corps of Engineers in projects, to deauthorize the Turning Basin extension, which was accomplished and dredged in 1975. That project was the Phase 1 expansion of the port. And you need to recognize that that is probably one of the dumbest things to ever deauthorize a federal project. There is certainly negotiations that could occur such that the Berth 1 tenant could agree with the Corps to move the structure, because it is a floating structure supposedly if it gets permitted, and they could move it to accommodate any Corps dredging. You also have that project also overlays the Florida Inland Navigation projects, and I'll speak later on about that. But lastly, Corps of Engineers dredging. You had another event in the last week or so, but we still do not have a port system. That's a NOAA monitoring system such that you could have more advanced notice of what's happening in terms of sand transport by the environmental conditions, both currents, the hydrodynamics of the port, and sediment transport into the port. That's something every other port got back in the early 90s to the latter 90s, and this port has just continually not wanted it. It's a safety issue, and we need to start focusing on adding a ports monitoring system, which is a federal system, and it's not something that's going to be expensive for the port of Palm Beach. So 3 items.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I have our engineer to elaborate or to opine? Excuse me,
Yeah, if you want to.
I just wanted to, could you opine on that comment by Mr. Ward?
I could just quickly mention that.
The monitoring system.
The monitoring system. We'll look at the monitoring system. The monitoring system, for instance, I don't believe, in my opinion, would have done much, for instance, for the shoaling that we experienced last week and that we're dealing with right now. But I'll be glad to look into the system and report back to you next month if you'd like.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pinsky.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Richard Pinsky, and I think there's a presentation ready to go. Perfect. So it's that time of year that we're getting ready for the 2023 session, and a lot of new things are occurring that I want to bring to your attention. And sometime between now and the start of session, we do need to think about Can you go to, is there a beginning there? Keep going back all the way to, keep going. There.
That's where it starts.
That's it? Just those two slides?
No.
Oh. No, nothing. Okay, keep going back. No, keep,
That is all I have. That's all I was given.
Chair Strickland, each of you have the
We've
PowerPoint
got-
presentation
we
printed
have
in
the
front of you, too.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
But it's not on the
Okay, very good.
screen, so we can look at that.
Yeah, very good. Okay, good.
Yeah. It's in the,
Well,
in this.
I'll do the audience participation.
Okay.
So we have new state lawmakers representing the port. Representative Mike Caruso, his district changed. He now goes up the coast, basically east of Broadway. In West Palm Beach, it would be east of Dixie. He just hugs the coastline all the way up. And he was reelected. And he ends in 2026. Now, Representative Tay Edmonds, who was our lawmaker for a short time while he last session, he is basically west of Broadway. So there's a number of legislators that make up the Port District, but as far as where our property is and where we reside, we're actually in Representative Mike Caruso's district now. He is a member of the Republican caucus, which could be a great benefit to the port since the Republicans are in control in Tallahassee. We do stick with Bobby Powell as our state senator. Nothing has changed there. The next slide is the entire Palm Beach County delegation, which we have two new members. One is Representative Catherine Waldron. You may have heard of her before. And then Representative Peggy Gossett-Seidman is won the what was formerly the Emily Schlossberg seat down in the central part of the county. Everything else stays the same. As far as upcoming dates, in the next item in this slide is the and by the way, B, thank you so much for putting this in the packets. You're a lifesaver. And so next week, next month, we'll be up in Tallahassee for a special session. Of course, next week we will be up in Tallahassee for the organizational session and where everybody gets sworn in, including Catherine Waldron. And then we will be back for a committee week and special session in December. January 3rd through February starts committee weeks, which, as you know, they begin meeting and begin hearing requests for funding. Bills start getting filed, etc. The governor has promised that there may be one or two more special sessions sprinkled amongst the months of January and February. March 7th session begins. For those of you that are contemplating, Palm Beach County Days is on March 8th, and the last day of session is May 5th. You can't see it because it's not up on the slide, but we're doing the happy dance on May 5th.
What is the special session going to be about?
The
Insurance?
special session in December is on insurance, and we're not quite sure what proposals will be there, but now things like building construction along the coast is going to be part of it as well. We did that up in the Panhandle, where now after one of the hurricanes back in 2010, they moved the actual building setback, and so now they're contemplating something like that for southeast and southwest Florida as well.
Wow.
Don't know if it'll happen, but we'll see. Next is the project funding opportunities. One of the things that the port has not taken advantage of in some time, and that is the Transportation Planning Agency. We are eligible for funding. We do sit as a member of the TPA in the county, and so whatever transportation related that may be contemplated by the port certainly could go through the TPA. It also gets us on the 5-year work program. So for whatever infrastructure improvements concerning roads, whether that's entrance, whether that's bus stop, whether that's charging stations, whatever upgrade that has to do with motorized and non-motorized transportation should be going through the TPA, and it's another grant opportunity that the port could be taking advantage of. The other is, and Mr. Ward alluded to it, I don't know what he's going to speak to later, but the Florida Inland Navigation District gives out a healthy amount of money for coastal communities, and certainly I know the county is going to find right now for funding help with Peanut Island. We're going to need some funding when it comes to the redoing of the docks or whatever the plan is that Palm Beach County is coming up with. So I just want to bring that to the attention of the Port Commission as well, that hopefully by this coming March, when the deadline approaches, we may actually have a project that we want to talk about, whether that's seawall, anything to do with the water side would be applicable.
Have we ever gotten any money from the TPA?
Not in my lifetime, but it is eligible. We have a seat on the TPA.
Yes, I know.
And all you have to do is ask, and you basically then the whole board votes, and then you get in year 5. Then you start moving up the ladder.
Right.
But once you're in, then you can accelerate it by going to Tallahassee, because the first question is, are you in the Florida Department of Transportation 5-year work plan? Yes, we are. And then the legislature is able to fund it. So getting something in, rather than a straight legislative request, I'm giving you a couple of other ways, coming in through the window rather than through the door.
I understand.
And the last item on that page is the DEP. I know we've talked before about resiliency, hardening, and other infrastructure, whether it's our wastewater. I know we work with Riviera Beach, but we're still responsible now to DEP what leaves our port and goes into the intercoastal waterway. Again, this is grant money that we don't necessarily have to ask the legislature for, but we can go directly to beef up our infrastructure and not have to worry about asking for the legislature. The next page, and now, Mr. Baker, you can put up the one that says Florida Legislature funding. Perfect. Is there one before that? Okay, here it is. Perfect. No, you had it right there. Okay, good. So then now here we are ready for session. Any project category, it's not specific to DEP, transportation, anything you want. Could be land, could be of a community benefit to our neighbors, could be future project studies that we may want to do. Even job training may be something that we want to do for marine training. I know that's always a challenge for getting all of our port tenants, and we can certainly provide that infrastructure for job training. Usually does require a local investment match. And we're almost done. Carl, next slide, please. Just so you know, we're looking at this right now. Of course, there's Boys and Girls Club, so we're looking at this. This is the CRA proposal that's before the Riviera Beach CRA right now for housing and mixed-use development. So the new border, this property is already taken, of course, and so the new border will be here as far as the zoning, if this goes through for Riviera Beach. So the port could be contemplating what this opportunity arises. Of course, we have this right here. And I know that you've already discussed on more than one occasion possibility of securing land for port expansion. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
What's on the first parcel on that?
Here,
Yes.
there's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Staluppi
Okay.
that owns that entire square.
Oh, okay. And the CRA's proposed is in back of that.
The CRA starts here.
Right. I get you.
Actually, Wayne Huizinga owns this parcel like this. So you've got some mixed use, but there may be some horse trading going on.
Uh-huh.
So their project, CRA, basically starts here. Like that.
Is that vacant land now, or is there stuff on it?
What there are, of course, the Boys and Girls Club is right there. So there are some. There may be some knockdown that's there now.
Yeah, I believe a building was raised. Just
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I drive by there
But
periodically.
the Boys and Girls Club's pretty new, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of the centerpiece around
Yeah.
the mixed-use
I
development.
get you. Okay.
But the point is, in our remember that old interlocal agreement that said don't go above 10th Street? So the city is got plans,
Yeah.
and so I'm just bringing it to your attention
Good.
that I know you're already thinking about expansion.
Yep.
That may be part of a legislative proposal. Okay, next slide, Carl. The next is what you're looking at here is the west side of our boundary, both on the north and south sides of MLK. And this has been a issue that comes up periodically with the city, particularly the folks that live in the Heights, Riviera Beach Heights. And I don't know what it would cost or what it would take, maybe in partnering with the railroad, but certainly between our wall, our boundary, and the railroad, there is, in my opinion, room for improvement as far as a landscaping buffer and what we can do to make it easier on the eyes for those residents that live across the way. This could be a legislative request that would fall in that category. I don't know what that would be, maybe $100,000. It doesn't seem like it would be that much. I wish I had $100,000, but in terms of the legislature, it wouldn't be that much, but it would be a great community benefit. We could probably get Riviera Beach to go along with it, with us. The last slide is action items. So in addition to getting with Director Almira and discussing what part of this presentation would be translated into a legislative request and possible grant, I do think it's time. We have been a few years, but we should have another port briefing. We do have a couple of new lawmakers. We got Mike Caruso is our new legislator. And so I think it would be beneficial if we did that again, had another port briefing for the legislative staff and the legislative delegation, and then of course, like I said, we will get with the port staff to develop the project and funding request with your approval.
Any questions? Very good report. Wayne?
So, when would we need to come up with a list of wants, if you will, priorities for the port?
Okay, good question. This dialogue today, I tried to give you a couple of teasers.
There hasn't been much dialogue yet.
and so it's up to the commission. So I've tried to get your creative juices going by saying what in our port, if we had a wish list.
By December or by January?
We'll be fine by January, but December would be really good.
Okay. We should put that on the agenda for December.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, if it is amenable to the board, that we definitely consider about the aesthetics for the border of the Barack Obama Highway and MLK for the beautification, and at least try for those funds. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and have a dialogue with the city, because if we do get the money and put it in, we got to make sure that someone's going to take care of it.
yeah.
And not, we had problems before that we spent a lot of money and then no one was taking care of it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if we put them in on our property, we're responsible to maintain the landscaping.
But it's
But
zero
some of that-
landscaping. There's very creative ways that you can
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And I just want to thank,
That's part of the problem.
There's no water out there and everything.
And
He's
I-
tried.
Gene, speak in the mic.
You have to be creative, and there are other things we can put there
Right.
to make it look nice instead of just put trees, because you have to get them cut and all that thing.
Right.
So we might need to look into other avenues and ways to beautify that area,
Yeah.
which was low maintenance.
Yeah, that's what we need, yeah.
and I just wanted to thank Mr. Penske. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and thank you again. Thank you,
Good.
Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. Thank
Okay,
you very
good.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, old business.
H4.
Which one?
Commissioners?
Oh, commissioners. Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Nothing? Nothing. Okay, old business.
That's the litigation update.
Yes?
So You all have in front of you the order that was entered by the state court judge. Have some nighttime reading, but I'll summarize it for you to spare you going through that lengthy order. So first of all, the federal case is effectively closed. The only remaining issue in the federal admiralty arena is with regard to the Princess. As some of you may recall, the Princess is berthed at the Port Pierce. And we've got a lien of, I think, about $54,000. So we're going to put in a claim on that. But really the only focus now is the state court case. And on November 15th of this week, we finally got the judgment, final judgment and order that was entered against Teeters and Monarch Shipping Company for breach of the agreements. That order was based on the affidavit of the costs we've incurred, which is $1,027,047. $200,000 was minused from that sum based on the sale of the Monarch. So the remaining sum is $749,547 with accruing interest at a statutory rate of 4.25% per annum. That used to be considered a pretty good return, not so much nowadays. And that clock started ticking in terms of the interest in June. So the court has retained jurisdiction. So we have the judgment. I'll talk a little bit about executing on the judgment. The court's retained jurisdiction on the attorney's fees and costs. That's a separate proceeding, and we're going to hold off on that until all of the legal matters are resolved. But under all of our agreements with Teeters, we have the recovery of attorney's fees and costs, and so that will be initiated once we wrap up the legal proceedings. The final judgment that you have in front of you, the order, will be recorded in the Palm Beach County Public Records, which will be a judgment lien on any real property owned by the defendants, either Teeters or Monarch Shipping Company Limited. We'll also file with the Florida Secretary of State a judgment lien certificate, and this is now formally beginning the process of going after the assets of the Teeters and Monarch. So, as pursuant to the order you have before you, the defendants have 45 days from today, or December 31st, 2022, in order to complete under oath what's called the fact information sheet, which is required under the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure. And that is, among other things, will be obtaining a list of all of the assets, real and personal property owned by the companies. We've also sent discovery requests, interrogatories, and requests for production of documents to the defendants, asking them to identify and describe each of the assets owned. There's a very detailed list in the order of all the assets. Again, it's from assets that are either on, because, for example, Teeters claims that some of the assets, namely the equipment on the property, some of them are owned by third parties. Some of the equipment was leased or rented, so we're ferreting through some of that as well. And so at this point, when we get this inventory list and we get the responses to our discovery, we're going to have the sheriff levy on those assets. Now, we're hopeful that Teeters and Monarch will cooperate with us in that respect, because they have a judgment for X dollars. It's in their interest to identify assets to satisfy that judgment. So we're going to continue to work with their attorney, and hopefully we'll have cooperation in identifying those assets that we can take control of and sell. And speaking of assets, yesterday the staff posted the invitation, the bid, the solicitation documents for the vehicles. And we drafted an invitation to bid. Staff worked on it, finalized it. It's been, that invitation to bid has been shared with at least 12 vehicle salvage companies in the Palm Beach County area with proximity to the port. And like most port solicitations, it was posted on Demand Star. We also sent it to the Florida Ports Council, North Palm Beach County Chamber, and other vendors that we have listed here on the printout. If anyone's interested, we have a copy of the invitation to bid. So that process is moving forward. I don't anticipate we're going to get a lot of money for the remaining vehicles. I think it's just as important really to get those vehicles off so that we can begin preparation of the property to relet in some areas. And I think there's actually an agenda item about looking at having Kimley Horn look at some of these areas, maybe expanding some of the exfiltration trench in some of the areas where we may have had some flooding or standing water. Some areas the pavement is in very bad condition, needs to be repaved. Some areas need to be paved. So all that is moving forward, again, with the goal of getting the property ready to relet. So that's kind of a quick summary of the Teeters litigation. If you have any questions.
I have a question. Why, on the ship up in Fort Pierce, are we only putting in for like $54,000? I don't understand that.
So under admiralty law, you can only assess the fees that were incurred on that particular ship. That's why it's only $54,000.
So that ship was never here? Or?
He has it. It was.
So if it was here, though, and they moved it, I don't understand why. Yeah.
Is that the extent of what they owe us from being here?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
The wharfage and dockage.
I get you.
And that's it. You
Yeah,
can't,
right.
I mean, that ship actually has a lot more value, but
But if we get a judgment for X amount of dollars, and they own that ship, wouldn't that figure into the? No,
we
that's-
will attempt to lien and levy anything
Right.
that is owned by either Teeters or Monarch Shipping Company.
Good. Wayne?
What is the process that we must follow to dispose of the equipment on the 3.6 acres? The old 20 and 40-foot containers and the other equipment. What is that process?
So it's going to be an easier process. The only reason the equipment was X'd out of the order was that Teeter said, well, wait a minute, we don't own that equipment. We did not want to get into a dispute with third parties. They claimed that some of the equipment is rented or leased, and so we're still waiting to get a list of that equipment so we can verify that it is in fact not owned by Teeters. But once that's clarified, we have the judgment, we can levy on that equipment and sell it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, very
Are
good.
there,
Good.
are there any parameters by which we must sell them?
I'm sorry?
Are there any parameters that we must follow when we sell that equipment?
Not at all.
All right. Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you very much.
We've looked at auctions and other processes for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Like you had said, the main goal on most of that stuff is just to get it out of there so we can start clearing the property and, releasing it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
would you think if any of our other tenants might be amenable to either purchasing or taking some of that equipment off of our hands?
Yes, I was raising my hand to let the board know that there have been some interest from internal, or should I say tenants, that are willing to purchase the equipment as is, where is, but up until now, not before the judgment, we could not act on it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I want to follow up on that.
Okay.
That's a good idea. If we can sell it to current port tenants at a reasonable price, I know there is a shortage of containers and equipment
Chassis.
and chassis. I would like to give our current tenants first dibs. So please, let's look at that.
And once again, we need to find out what is owned.
Understand?
Got it.
Yeah.
Once it's all clear,
But
then
yeah,
we
yeah.
can move on.
All right, good.
Question
Thank
for the board, though. Do you prefer to do one-on-ones, or is it just going to be outbid, an auction, something? We don't need to make a decision now. But once this is clear, then obviously we're going to cross that bridge. How do we go about selling
Well,
it?
that's something that you, staff will
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
to us and
We'll
say,
give you direction, so make it happen.
I will tell you, so
Yeah.
we have given it a lot of thought. And the issue is you can possibly generate more monies through an auction. But now you could be dealing with 50, 60, 70 or more different purchasers. And then each one of them will have a contract. It'll be a form contract. It'll be an as is, where is. But when you start factoring in the amount of time, legal and port staff time, and that's why, for example, with the vehicles, we opted to do the invitation to bid, get one buyer for all of the vehicles. And that's, by the way, I should have pointed out, is in this invitation to bid. You cannot buy one or 50%. It's all or nothing, because we don't want to get into the car sales business. And, with respect to the equipment, because sounds like a good idea. Again, just weighing the cost and benefit of the time involved with an auction versus, but we have, it's interesting, in our charter, we have authority for private sales, which is unique and helpful in this regard.
all right, well, you guys will come up with a
Yeah.
plan and let us know, and that'll be
Thank
that.
you.
Very good. All right, let's see where we have.
I-2.
I-2.
Commissioners, item I-2 is for the award of cleaning services contract. We issued a request for proposal. Staff reviewed those proposals. We had an evaluation committee, including Lawrence Kelly, Keith Leggett, and myself, three of the people that are responsible for this aspect of work. This takes care of cleaning the cruise terminals, the Southgate warehouses, guardhouses, and security booths. And we do recommend award to the highest ranked firm of 24 Hours, Inc. They had a
Mr.
very
Chairman? Move approval.
We have approval, Commissioner Richards, second, Commissioner Enright. Any discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 4-0. Thank you. New
Commissioners,
business.
the next item is, excuse me, go ahead.
Chair Stickland, we have a public comment on I-2 from Mr. Ward.
No, he's on J2.
J2. My apologies.
Go ahead.
Next item is J1. This is, as was mentioned by our attorney, Mullins Parcel Drainage and Paving Design, Permitting and Bid Phase Services. We recommend the award to Kimberly Horn. And going through this, Kimberly Horn is very familiar with the conditions, very familiar with the process of paving and drainage for our port. And we feel like we have a very good price at $43,820 for this work order. He will be looking at things like using the existing on-site drainage to save us money.
Mr.
And there
Chairman?
is some on-site drainage that can be adjusted.
Commissioner Richards?
Move approval.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Anderson, any discussion? All in favor, all opposed, carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
J2.
J2, Executive Director Recruitment Process and Job Search. Commissioners, back on March of this year, we discussed my plans to retire. And as such, the board instructed us to proceed with some steps to find out exactly how do we go about finding a possible replacement. We had an opportunity, HR and our legal, our attorney, and me, and we formed a committee and we started to put our ideas as to how to proceed. What remains the same is that my plan continues to be June 30th. I would be stepping away. I can and will tell you that it would make the job a lot easier if the transition is in place and there is some time for training. Unlike what happened to me is I walked in here and all I had was a pen and a piece of paper. So I went all along as it went. However, I don't anticipate having that problem or that same challenge for the new person, he or she. With that, we have come up with a certain steps, and in order for me to not really to step in, and I kind of feel awkward that I'm looking for my own replacement, but I will ask our attorney and HR, if she wishes, to further explain what we have come up with, and certainly there's a time line here that we should be following. So, John?
Just very brief. So in your backup, you have a graphic which has been, one of the dates was revised. So you'll see it here in the lower left-hand corner. So this graphic, and as Manny said, the clerk, the executive director, myself, spent some time going over this, and we developed this graphic to kind of just depict what we're proposing as the process. It is an ambitious timeline. And, keep in mind on something that Manny just said, if the candidate selected is not from the area, what's not baked into this is the fact that they may have to sell a home. They may have to move. Sometimes that is measured in months, not weeks. When you leave a current position, should provide at least 30 days notice. So that piece is an unknown. This gets us to a point where you make an offer, but from March to when the executive director moves, that's where there's some unknown as to having all these pieces fall into place. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't there a way that we can put that, have it understood that if you were selected on March 16th, that 30 days afterwards you would have to report to work? Can we put that in there? That they will have to start 30 days afterwards? I mean, if they know in advance, from the beginning, hey, if you're selected on March 16th, on April 16th, you have to be to work.
So I recommend.
The attorney finished.
Yeah.
And then we'll ask questions.
That's just an idea.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, this is, based on who you ultimately select, where that person is, what their personal and professional situation is, we can make some judgment calls. We're going to have to negotiate a contract, and there'll be terms and conditions in that employment agreement that can address what Commissioner Enright has said. So, here's the process. So, public notice, and again, in terms of the public notice, we put a fairly detailed job description for the position. We went through what other port director job descriptions look like, both inside and outside of Florida, and use that as kind of the template for the job description you have before you. But as you'll see here, we have the notice, the advertisement of the job opening. And again, you'll see in the backup, we'll use as many port industry publications as possible in and outside of Florida, as well as the typical online services where we put out our public notice. Again, tight deadlines here. You put the notice out, which will, upon your approval, and I'll go over some key decision points, we get the notice out ASAP. A deadline to submit resumes to HR is December 27th. HR, in 48 hours, reviews those applications to ensure that the submittals are, in fact, qualified. And I'll tell you from my personal experience, you put an ad out and you say, for example, a minimum of 10 years experience, I'll tell you, with attorneys, and I get law students applying for the job. So, and usually at least 50% or more of the applications are on their face, have zero qualifications. Mm-hmm. So HR is going to do that first cut. Right. And then a short list, which I'll discuss with you shortly, will be scheduled for interviewing. Then that would be in January. The short list qualified resumes go to you on January 5th, 2023, and then HR, when you identify that short list, starts scheduling the interviews. And as I'll get to in a moment, interviews for a public body, they can be done. You can do an interview in public, or you can do round-robin, one-on-one interviews. I can tell you, having done this often, the one-on-ones allow you to have open and frank conversations with the candidates. When you're in a public forum, there's a little bit more restriction, but that's your decision, which we'll get into momentarily. Then in February, we have internal and external candidate interviews will be scheduled. And then at the March 16th, 2023 commission meeting, selection of the ED candidate. And there are really 5 issues that we identified that require commission direction or commission approval. And I'll just kind of run through those very quickly. Item number 1 is we want you to approve the executive director job description, since we just came up with it. Okay. It's not something you've seen in the past. Item number 2 is need to get some direction as to the number of candidates you want in the short list. It could be 3, it could be 10, it could be 5. So we need some direction on that short list. And obviously, the more candidates you shortlist, the more interviews. The second issue, and again, this is something I've run into, is we may have some internal candidates. Mm-hmm. And, we're recommending that if you have a qualified internal candidate, you grant them an interview as a matter of right and courtesy. So keep in mind then, if your short list is 5 candidates, let's say, and you have 2 or 3 internal, now you've got 8 interviews, which is a lot. So just keep that in mind.
John, one question. For us to say how many, we would like to interview, don't we have to wait till we get all the resumes?
Yes.
Right, we can't tell you now 5 because we might only have 3 people that we feel are qualified. So that will be after we get all the resumes in, then we'll be able to narrow it down.
Correct, yes.
Right? Everybody agree?
Sure.
Okay.
Another item is just to get your approval to have HR do that first cut in terms of qualifications. And, I'll be working with HR on that process. Yeah.
Quick question. So HR will obviously do the initial cut to determine which candidates meet the qualifications, but I think you're also suggesting they'll do a further cut.
Oh, yes. And again,
so my question is, on what basis would HR then do a further cut?
So there's one cut is you're qualified or not under the job description.
Responsive or not.
So then, exactly. So then that next cut is really going to be based on your direction of how many interviews you want to, the short list. So just like a competitive solicitation, you can identify a short list of 3, 5, 7. That's up to you. You don't have to make that determination today.
And I don't think we should, Mr. Chairman.
Correct.
Clearly, I think we need to get the list of the responsive applicants, and at that point, we can then make a decision.
Everybody agree on that?
Exactly. Yeah.
What? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there could be 5 or 50 qualified.
Okay.
We don't know. And then the last item is compensation range. So there's 2 schools of thought. One is you just say commensurate with experience or qualifications. Another school of thought is you draw higher caliber individuals if you put a salary range. So that's something we need to get some direction from you on. And
in the meeting.
And that's it.
And the one-on-one versus, And I think the
Yeah,
one-on-one.
of course.
Yeah, would be.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we've always, so it'd be the one-on-one, and then we'll all think about the salary range. I think that'll be.
I agree.
Pretty easy to do.
And Mr. Chairman, I haven't, I'm sure we all have gone over these qualifications. They're
Yes.
very, very thorough, well done.
Yes.
I'm good with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is the job description acceptable to the
Yes.
commission as well?
Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the posting, because the compensation, the question is, do you want a compensation range in the posting, or do you just want a generic commensurate with
I think
experience?
commensurate, Blair.
do you
Mr.
think?
Chairman, I don't think we should have a salary range, period. I think it should be commensurate with qualifications and things like that, because if
Joe?
a person really wants the
Okay.
job,
Okay.
then they will
What do
apply.
you think?
Well, the verbiage could say commensurate, but at the same time, you're attempting to attract individuals that are knowledgeable as well as the cream of the crop. And then that leads to my second question and consideration. I know that we were very amenable when we chose Mr. Williams with our chief financial officer, and I don't know if our director is amenable to staying on, because once you get an individual that is very qualified, he has to get his affairs in order. So therefore, that 30-day time period may be a little arduous for him to actually get everything and relocate. So if we're talking about the cream of the crop, I think we have to consider, maybe having a consultant or somewhere along the line with, as we did with our chief financial officer. So I think the verbiage could be commensurable, but I'm not also opposed to having a salary range. But when you're talking about our executive director, that is a very important position.
Manny, what do you think?
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're not putting a range, because everybody will gravitate towards the high
Yeah.
number. Right? But that almost leaves your back door open. You may be dealing with an individual who is cream of the crop, but he or she may be asking for $500,000.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
you have to take that in consideration. Now, I heard, and I'm glad. I think I just heard, in the event that I were to be asked, would I come back? The answer is yes. I'm available. There are some travel plans, but that's further down. But because of FRS and the way FRS is structured, it behooves me to finish on June the 30th. Anything thereafter would be on a consultant basis, and I'd be more than glad.
Right. And I think that this timeline, I've been through this numerous times. So I think this timeline, we won't have any problem whatsoever. I think the 30 days is fine. I don't think we'll have any problems with someone that we select. When we tell him 30 days, believe me, he'll find a way. And his other employer will probably want him out of there in 2 weeks anyway. So I don't think that's a problem. So I think we've settled on almost.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I just want to add that if we have to, and we do need Mr. Mayor, I would like to have it so that we can hire him as a consultant if we need him to stay on a month or two. Hello, and put the vacation later on if you want. Well, sir?
October, November.
Well, remember, we're going to.
I'm saying if we have to, just have him
Right.
consultant, just working with the new person, if we need to have that to occur.
But remember, we're going to hire the person on March 16th. He's not leaving until June 30th.
Right.
So
there'll
after
be
months,
time.
March, April,
But-
he'll be here.
We'll make an offer on
Yes.
March 16th.
But if there is, I'd be more than glad to
Right.
stay
Okay.
on as a consultant.
Right.
Because
That's
of that
Okay,
FRS.
that'll work.
But Gene, you have to promise not to discuss the car usage.
The what now?
The car usage. That's only for those of us that are old
Oh,
enough.
yes.
Gene, stop. Stop. I'm teasing you, Gene. Just stop. The old heads here know that's an old story.
Okay.
And just, I'm checking off each of these, and
What do we
you're
have
okay
left?
with the internal candidates being granted interviews?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I believe
And,
in hire and develop great people.
And we'll just hold off on the numbers for the short list based on what we get
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Okay?
We're good.
All right. Gerald Ward, do you want to tell us you're applying for the job?
All you need is an 81-year-old in this. That's just like the feds in this. Anyway, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. Obviously, I've been involved with EDs at this district since December of 1965. It's a long time. And I've seen EDs that are visionaries, that have had a plan, got a plan adopted by the board, and implemented part of it. For instance, the rail improvements that finally are going to get done were conceived by the 1972 plan. So we also then turned around with the Crazy Sky Pass for further improvements in rail as a way of getting DOT. Mr. Pinsky, although I told him in the elevator he's trouble first, he did lay out that you have not gotten a lot of different money sources, and you have to get a plan, a master plan, to do these. The ED process in 1965 was one of the worst ones that ever happened, and I was pleased to hear that you did say that you would take the existing employees and give them an interview opportunity. In reality, 6 months ago you said you needed a second deputy or ED. You should be able to immediately transfer power when the current one retires and not have to worry about extension of his service. So let's go back to the Saturday where you had 4 candidates, all of them foreigners, none of them from Florida. You need somebody in Florida, or at least that demonstrates that he has previous Florida experience and is Florida knowledgeable.
Or she.
Or she, if you. And I had that emphasized recently that if you watch the space launch, there was only one woman in the firing room when we sent up the shuttle in 60 something. So it's amazing the change in philosophy there. But let's go back and find somebody with Florida knowledge, visionary, lots to do planned, and he also wants to establish a staff that doesn't require him to be in command.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Wayne?
just a follow-up, in our budget that we approved very recently, only a few months ago, there was a deputy, I believe. Are we going to act on that? We need to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's still
Can I,
up in the air. Go ahead, man.
I think it's only fair for the ED or the next executive director to make that decision. That's me. I've chosen not to for many reasons. And one of the leading reasons is exactly that. I don't think it's fair for he or she who replaces me to be, don't take this the wrong way, but saddled with somebody else. Let he or she decide whether it's needed or not. That's
I agree.
Well, I agree too, because we've seen that happen
Yeah,
before.
okay.
We've had that too.
All right, yeah, I think that's good. Okay, very good. So we have everything good?
Yes, sir. We have
Yep.
the direction we need.
What else we have? Anything else coming up today?
Nope.
We have a couple more. Gerald Ward, you still want, have something else? You might as well get up there and DeAndre.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on
Are we coming?
comments from the public.
Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. The last item is public comments. Mine. I guess the first thing is, nowhere today did you talk about the master plan. Now, that was supposed to have progress, and we were to get an adopted master plan next year. We've got 6 months that we have to give the county, who is the adoption authority for the plan. You've got to depend upon the county commissioners and their staff to agree with the public and get a plan adopted. You need, for the PID, as I started out, some plans, some vision. some actual projects that need to get accomplished. And so somewhere along the line, that needs to be pushed back on the front burner because it's not there now. And that goes to the second item. You have plans for major changes to the Intercoastal Waterway. Tonight, there was a meeting at 6 o'clock, which all of you are invited, public, everybody, down at 4050 Flagler, the Rybovich facility down there, another mega yacht operation. And at 6 to 8, everybody's invited. But more importantly, you were asked to be on the agenda for the find tomorrow, which has their meeting downtown in a hotel, to discuss some of the thoughts that have been conveyed to staff. There are commissioners, 12 commissioners, one from each county, from Fernandina to Miami. Soon, or at some time, the statute provides them going all the way to Key West with Monroe County. 13. They are involved excessively in planning and getting things done. You heard Mr. Penske say there's money available from FIND even. You had them develop the channel of the Intercoastal north of the Turning Basin extension up to Rybovich, his facility, a major operation for vacuum, the city marina, 3 different major projects up there that got the benefit of deepening the Intercoastal Waterway to close to its, well, in excess of its current authorized project limits. So things like that are big money, and they get things done. They just got through 2 years ago deepening the waterway or maintaining it all the way from the South Turning Basin down to the town of Palm Beach's marina. They funded a large part of the town of Palm Beach's redevelopment. Things are going well in the inland waterways, and you need to be involved with it.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. DeAndre, come on down.
Good evening, Commissioners. I just wanted to, DeAndre Poole, Commissioner-elect for Group 5. And I just wanted to come by and wish our Chair congratulations on his reelection, and just say to the Commission I look forward to working with all of you when I'm sworn in. And I also want to wish Commissioner Anderson well and thank him for his service to our community and wish him well in his endeavors. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you very much. All right, Commissioners, anything else we have?
Commissioner, I wanted to see what was the timeline or what how we're going to move forward with the candidates.
Well, in December, we're going to put that on the agenda.
Okay.
And hopefully we all have 30 days now to go through all the candidates. I would assume that that's plenty of time. And then at the December meeting, I think I'll be ready. Like I say, I got everything I'm going to take home with me. So, pardon me? Yeah. So
Mr.
I
Chairman?
think, just a second. So I think in the December meeting, we'll decide as a board if we're ready to proceed and select a person. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, because there are 11 people, I think that we need to take our time in this process. We're not in a hurry. And I think we need to even interview the candidates. There are people I've never seen and never heard of. And they're going to be working with us for the next 2 years. So I think that we need to be mindful of how we do this process. Not just look at the names and, hey, I'm going through. I don't even know who the people are. Never seen them in my life. And I think it's too important of a position that we just go through it 4 weeks from now, look at the sheets, then select someone. I don't think we're being fair. And that's my comment.
Okay. Well, like I say, in December we'll decide. I mean, I would assume that some of the candidates, if I have any questions, call them up, talk to them, And, if I have to meet with any of them, I'll even do that. But I've got 30 days, so I feel that's sufficient. That's
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's fair that we have a commissioner coming on board in January, and he's not allowed to be a part of the process. Let's look at this whole picture. DeAndre Poole will be our commissioner in January. We can't wait 3 weeks to allow him to be a part of the process. This is wrong. Okay, let's talk real talk.
okay. That's
Now,
your opinion.
That is my opinion.
Okay.
And Mr. Poole, I hope that our commissioners decide to let you become a part of the process, since you will be with us for the next 4 years. But I don't think we should run through this. We need to be careful. And from now to then, we're going to interview people between now and the 15th of December.
Yeah.
We will have to have interviews with 11 people and all of this.
Okay. Well, we're not having interviews.
So, quick comment.
Go ahead.
Comment.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into a
Yeah.
back and forth match,
Right.
but I don't think this has anything to do with the new commissioner, commissioner-elect. Poole is not a commissioner yet, so this has nothing to do with him. So I don't want us to get, this is not, whatever we do, December, January, February, has nothing to do with the commissioner-elect. We're excited and looking forward to him serving beginning in January. That's all.
Yeah, I understand. And Commissioner Poole will be involved in the selection of the new executive director, but Commissioner Anderson's been on for 4 years now, and if we put it off to January, Commissioner Poole will be on for a week. Yeah, so, we have to do what's fair, too. Commissioner Anderson, do you have any comment already?
Yeah, I definitely concur because I've served in this position as chair, vice chair, secretary, and various roles. And I know I do believe that we need to really move forward. I'm amenable to meeting with any and all of the candidates, as well as filling this role. And I don't think this is a very difficult process. There's 11 individuals, and many of them, whether you know it or not, just looking at some of the names, they're either pillars of the community, business owners, or have served in elected office. So I think that statement goes by the wayside that these are Johnny-come-latelys. They are definitely within the community, and we know each and every one of
All
them.
right, so in December, it'll be on the agenda, and then, like I say, hopefully in the next 30 days, everyone can do their due diligence, and we'll see in December if we're ready to select.
Yep.
All right, anything else? Our next meeting will be December 15th.
Yeah, I just,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just
Yes.
wanted to we down to comments from the board, or?
Yes, you have some, anything else?
I just first of all wanted to congratulate you on your victory, as well as I wanted to congratulate the Commissioner-elect DeAndre Poole, and I also wanted to congratulate each and every one that ran for public service and was not elected, and those that were elected, because that shows that you care about the community and the process, and it carried itself out. I mean, this was a very contentious race, whether either party, whether Democrat, Republican, or NPA. And I really like the synergy and the energy of individuals being involved in the election process. So I wanted to commend each and every one of you, those that won and also those that did not win. And I will still stay committed to the port and still will be here. And every now and then I'll nudge you guys along the way. But and also I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Waldron and her victory. I know she's not here today, but I know she'll do well in her next venture at the state. And I would definitely miss each and every one of you, but I will hold that till December or January. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? All right, December the 15th, and we're adjourned.